Alright, everybody. Episode 16 of the Movie Club is here. I'm your host, Ashley. Joining me, as ever, is AJ.
Yes.
I don't know what I have to think about that. And Chris.
Roger Moore mentioned Bond.
Yes, that's the best bit. Not everybody is like a secret agent or that. Like, well, we'll wait 2 years. Well, I guess they probably filmed in 71, so 1 year. So yeah, in all honesty, and this is where the stuff comes out. This is my first time watching it as well.
Oh,
Um,
really?
I purposely wanted to choose it because it was one that I was intrigued by, um, especially when in all the sort of stuff I've seen over the past number of years. I think I got it on DVD at some point, with probably just because it was Roger Moore, and I was in a spell of like trying to get a bunch of stuff that like other people were in. So like Lawnmower Man, sometimes questionable stuff like Lawnmower Man for Pierce, and another film which may or may not be coming up uh, in terms of poll votes, depending how you vote, because slight spoilers. I'm having two predictions, and depending on the timing and the positioning of the predictions, you either get one film or the other. Um, but we'll get to that in 2 weeks. And yeah, turns out I got it, and it was sort of like £4 or £5 on DVD. And now, if I look for that same variant, it's about 70. Um, because it's that out of print. Then again, what's come out since is a Blu-ray DVD combo, which I think is the same feed that I got it off because it was the Studio Canal release. They've like properly remastered it and everything. Um,
Yeah, the copy I watched on Canopy looked really good.
yeah, and Roger had always said that of all the things that he'd done, which when you take into account like The Saint, Persuaders, all that sort of stuff, and again, I guess there were TV shows, but Man Who Haunted Himself was always his favourite film, and that it was a film that he got to act in rather than just being white teeth and flippant and heroic, which makes
See, that was
sense when it was the book itself was previously an Alfred Hitchcock 30-minute short back in the 50s. Well, no, back in the 60s, I think. I'd have to look at what date that first aired.
the first time I saw this movie was probably in like the 2015 area, maybe, and it kind of just went in and out. So then when I was watching it this time, it like occurred to me he's like really acting his ass off in this one.
Yeah, night.
Kind of makes you feel bad for letting it go in and out whenever he's like, this is my favorite movie I ever made. And you're just like, I got other stuff to do.
Wow, we were nearly at the
But no,
end.
I agree. I remember while I was watching it, I was like, I had no idea Roger Moore had this in him.
Yeah.
Nearly at the anniversary. To be fair, December 4th, 1955 was the Hitchcock uh, one, which Hitchcock himself directed as well. And then like the biggest irony, this was Basil Dearden's final film as director and I guess co-writer. which obviously, when you look at sort of a lot of his legacy, he did a few sort of, Blue Lamp in 1950, and it's a whole big thing of the Dixon of Dock Green character getting killed off. I know that's spoilers, but it's 70 years ago. I guess that was like the equivalent of what happened to Sherlock, and like people were not happy. But yeah, the reason why I bring it up, considering what happens at the start and the end of this film, Basil Dearden died in a car accident. Ironically, on the same motorway stretch that was used and was staged to be used for the car scenes. So it's like,
oh yeah, that's not eerie at all.
It's not just weird that he passed away via an automobile accident, but the fact that the accident happened on the same stretch of road. I don't think it was. Certainly the bit towards the end is not a motorway, but the bit at the start, I think I've been down that multiple times because it's one of the easy ways to go from north of London to London with all those weird flyovers and whatever.
With all those coincidences, next you're going to tell me he had a mustache at the time of the accident.
I don't know about that.
I was trying to. I didn't want to say anything insensitive, but I was just thinking, like, if assuming like the doctors that were working on him had seen the movie when he died, did they all kind of like wait in suspense for a second heartbeat? Or
but like, even from like the start, it leaves you wondering what's going on. With his mannerisms just suddenly change. And then especially when, obviously somehow it can be done, because I've seen oscilloscopes and whatever have it where you can sort of get the replica heartbeat underneath, sort of mirrored sort of thing, to get the mystery going on. And then it sort of goes from there. And the thing I like about it is a lot of the film is literally just from, I guess, Pelham 1, if we want to. Thank God there isn't a third, because then I could just do the taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 and do a joke out of that. But
yeah, I was gonna ask that question to the two of you. Do you think it would have been more effective if we didn't see like those brief scenes that show us the meeting scenes that the other Pelham had, and it was more like it wasn't revealed that he did have an actual double until like the third act? Do you think they kind of jumped the gun when they kind of showed what was going on pretty early?
Well, with the first one at the club, like, you're not sure, to be fair. But when you get to the sort of second bit, and you get the whole, I had a meeting with you, that's when you that's maybe where it possibly sort of falters a little bit. But then at the same time, I feel having that sort of gives you the added. The thing that helps is the Pelham double does look exactly the same. It's not like there's something different, like there's a scar or something where there's like a telltale thing. It is like actual pure doppelganger sort of thing.
Yeah.
In that respect,
that's kind of the beauty of the performance, also, because the fact that usually there is that little bit of physical difference, but that there isn't now, but yet just through like his mannerisms and his expression, you can tell which character's which.
Yeah. Well,
there's,
it's
there's
especially when it gets
really
to the. I guess it's more implied at the end, because obviously Pelham 1 has sort of, you know, gone sort of greyish in colour, is wearing different clothes because of what the psychiatrist said and everything. So it sort of played sort of more obvious rather than everything else. I guess the only way that you can tell the difference from the way it was presented was the way that Doppelpelham like snaps the matchsticks or whatever, whereas probably he doesn't. But like, would that be noticed by anybody? Probably not. Um,
I was wondering where we stood on the ambiguous nature of the ending. Like, am I reading it wrong, or is it ambiguous as to
yeah,
which Pelham actually left? Because, like I was saying, where I feel like you can definitely tell the difference between the two characters just by his expression. After he like clutches himself, and then like it kind of passes by, just in mannerisms alone, he looks like the normal Pelham when it ends. Like his normal self took back over or something. I don't know how that works since it was the other one we saw go over, but the vibe I've always gotten, I remember from both times I've watched it, is that he's the normal Pelham when it ends.
yeah.
However that
I
works.
think the touch there as well, which they could have easily done but didn't, which I think is a smart move, is like have him smirk as if like the evil one is there, but because it's just like, huh, I wonder what happened. It's as if maybe like everything that happened to original Pelham never actually happened, and it was in his brain, but then of stuff wouldn't make sense otherwise. So, because in essence, it is like it's clever because it's like you think he's evil, but in essence, he's just bettering himself and his family. Because the whole spin is like, oh well, you know, secrets are going on. They're trying to do it so they can get a deal done, and then the revelation of no, he did it to basically increase the price so everybody gets more money from it, and he basically gets a raise and you know a raise and a promotion. So it's like okay, um, it's intriguing. The confusing thing though is that I guess the timeline of everything, because I guess we get however many weeks it takes to recover, because it's literally just like it jumps. It doesn't like have graphics up or anything. It just jumps to like him being normal and going out, which sort of ruins the fact that oh, the other guy's supposed to have been out for weeks doing all this other stuff. Um, you know, there are plot holes. But I think it's well enough acted to just about probably get away with it. Um, I also love the fact that Pelham's wife, it literally says in the credits that Hildegard Neal, with thanks to the Royal Shakespeare Company. It's like she only does theatre, but um, because the producers managed to get her, it's like nah, we'll find a way, whatever. Um, but yeah, and then I did appreciate as well the fact that the terrible dubbing on the children sounded more like girls than boys. Keep
I
him
don't know if I even noticed that.
keep him away from us, Daddy. He's like, okay. Is that the actual, third child they never had? The one that's doing the voice like, yeah, it's me.
So, brother, what were your overall thoughts?
I I was watching it while I was working. I had a hard time figuring out what was going on at first.
Yeah, I feel like
Like,
even if you were watching it head on, you probably feel the same way.
yeah. But then like I got more drawn into it. Like, yeah, the story was interesting, but more was really the one that like brought me in and like made me pay closer attention.
Yeah, the
I was
sort of the the twist down the rabbit hole of like how far it goes and all this stuff's happening, and he keeps getting all this stuff. Key point like with the barbers when he's like, "Does my hair look any different?" And the barber's just like, "Well, you barely had any taken off, sir." I was like, "Okay."
yeah. What is him basically saying like changing his mind on getting his hair cut and just leaving? Like one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
I don't. The saddest bit for me was like the time he goes back to French photographer's place, and he just like is teary eyed and bloodshot and everything. Like, call my psychiatrist again, because the delivery is just like it's an exhausted sort of like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, because you side with her when she's like, why are you playing these mind games? Why are you pretending this didn't happen? And then you also take her side when it's like you can actually believably see her look into his eyes and think, oh shit, he really thinks he wasn't just here. I was trying to remember because stuff like this really shows you how much Bond kind of limited what he's capable of. I was trying to remember because I know there is. I was trying to remember what else I would have even seen him in besides Bond movies and the fucking Cuba Gooding Jr. movie, Boat Trip.
Um, I'm trying to think. Well, the TV stuff at the time would have been the Saint and the Persuaders, and I don't know how much Persuaders got in terms of like post, runs in sort of the 70s and 80s. I'm guessing it probably did like a fair bit because it could be like, oh well, here's Roger Moore before he was Roger Moore, sort of thing. Because I think at least one, if not, I think only one was actually made into a film. Oh, I take it back. The one was called The Fiction Makers, but the novel it's based on is The Saint and the. Because the other one was Vendetta for the Saint, and they were sort of around the same time, like 68 and 69. And then I'm trying to think. You had going through the obvious stuff that stands out. You've got Gold, the not to be confused with the Matthew
Oh,
McConaughey one
yep.
from '74. Sherlock Holmes in New York, the TV film with him and Patrick Macnee, 8 years before View to a Kill. Um, Wild Geese was after Spy Who Loved Me and Escape to Athena, those war films that he did. Um,
He was in Spice World.
of course. and then the
I knew this.
and of course the cameo in the Val Kilmer Saint reboot that they did in the '90s as well. I think he also had a role in like I guess it was a TV movie that was like Roger's final appearance before his death. But other than that, Persuaders was 71 and 72, so that was all filmed right before he did James Bond. Um, but yeah, he didn't really do
I
much
hate the fact
television
that
other than them.
I hate the fact that when I was sitting here trying to remember what else I'd seen him in, I was probably like that void in my head that I knew was missing was probably Spice World.
He's also in. It's funny how I know these things. He's also in some. It's either a Hallmark or a Lifetime Christmas movie. He plays like somebody of royalty.
When would that have been?
I don't
A
know. I'll go to
princess for
IMDb real quick and I'll
Christmas.
tell you.
A princess for
Huh?
Christmas. A princess for Christmas.
That's it.
Or,
That's
or
it.
in the
That's the
UK,
one.
it was A Christmas Princess. Sometimes dreams come true. Um, and of
What year did that
course,
come out?
he was Clouseau in Curse of the Pink Panther.
Yeah, what year was the princess movie?
2011.
Oh. That I guess that brings to question now, because obviously I love a lot of his Bond movies. I probably love most of his Bond movies, and obviously that's a great legacy to have. But when you see the kind of acting he was putting on here, especially right before he became Bond, what kind of career do you think he would have without Bond? Would it have been more vast than it ended up being, or would he have just gone back to TV, or would he be an Oscar winner?
I mean,
That was a because his Bond time was what 12 years.
73 for till 85. So yeah, probably around then.
For an acting career, that's a pretty big chunk of time.
Yeah, longer.
Especially if you're
Well, if you look at what he did after, I mean, I saw him the least after Bond than everybody else. So
yeah.
that might give you insight on like what kind of roles he would have had otherwise. Because Connery did other stuff later, Brosnan did other stuff later. Craig has a whole separate career from it, where Bond is essentially something he just pops in to do, and then he goes back to fuck all where. Even Timothy Dalton's had like a resurgence.
I mean, to be
Yeah,
fair, a lot of his stuff sort of afterwards. I mean, at least from what I've seen in all the James Bond documentary stuff that are on the DVDs and the Blu-rays, I think a lot of his stuff was sort of like UNICEF and sort of charity stuff. To be fair, he wanted to dedicate himself to that and his humanity. Yeah, because he became UNICEF ambassador in '91. And was even the voice of Father Christmas in a UNICEF cartoon in 2004.
So it sounds like in the end, Roger Moore just did what made him happy.
Yeah,
I can't fault him for that,
I think so.
especially when it's doing good deeds like that.
The only thing I can see that like he did like producing wise afterwards was another one I was considering that might show up eventually. The Man Who Wouldn't Die, the Bill Condon film, where he plays a crime author that gets pursued and whatever. That's the only thing that I can see that he exec produced and sort of was involved with. But like on television, like over here in the UK, he did a few. Okay, he did 4 appearances on Laugh-In on NBC in America, and then nothing else is listed until some show called The Dream Team in 1999. So he disappeared off television for 20 years.
I'm sorry, are we gonna skip over The coincidence that you said that he produced a movie called The Man That Wouldn't Die, and we're talking about a movie he was in where one of the major plot points was he didn't die.
I mean, and to be fair, considering also his character in that one is an author that like is writing crime thriller mystery stuff and is wanting to sort of kill off the character Sherlock Holmes style. Yeah, there's a lot of weird like stuff. The great thing is, I think like in America it was maybe cinema released, but like over here it was just a TV movie or direct to video. Despite the fact that Moore was actually exec producer on it, because of course.
As far as like what he's capable of, we've been talking a lot about like his emotions and way he can change expressions, but also just kind of the way he handled the dialogue in this also stood out to me because with Bond he definitely had like the cadence for like the one-liners and stuff like that, but I wouldn't have thought him being capable to do stuff like there's the moment in the movie where he goes off on Ashton, the guy from the other company.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this whole sort of monologue where it's like he says like enough of this Alice through the looking glass story, and he's talking about getting him for defamation and stuff like that. That's a mouthful of a paragraph that he delivered so smoothly. It's like that was almost a tongue twister when he was in the Alice through the looking glass territory, and it just came out so smoothly. There's actually quite a few good dialogue bits in this. I kind of liked the line "They'll eat us and not even burp." Is a line that's like you feel like wouldn't read well, but when you hear it out loud, it's like that's actually a pretty good line.
Yeah, certainly like the speech as well that he gives at the start when addressing this takeover thing. Can't remember the lines exactly, but sort of the delivery. It's like there's a method behind his thinking, which is separate to what Doppelpelham was doing and everything. Who obviously had a similar sort of delivery, but it was obviously the more sort of cockiness because he knew that he sort of gained from it, and as he explained to everybody else, they gained from it as well, and they sort of like just accepted it. And then especially when he's talking to Pelham 1 and like, don't raise your voice, there's no need for that, like demeaning to himself.
Did you guys ever get the idea if it was supposed to be? And I don't even think this is even if it wasn't intentional. I don't think this is a bad thing anyway. So I don't want it to sound like a criticism or anything. But were there times where you had trouble being able to tell if something was supposed to be completely serious or darkly funny? Because I feel like there were a few things where it was like as the drama was ramping up, there were things that I found like genuinely funny, and I don't know if they were supposed to be or not. And I have one particular example.
Go ahead with the example because I'm trying to. I think I'm seeing where you're going, but what's the example?
Like just one example. I said there were a few, but the one I remember is when he's got the clue of the snooker club. And he's like, and it kind of becomes a mystery. And he's like, I'm going to go there and I'm going to investigate and I'm going to see if maybe he was there and like try to figure something out. Like if somebody was there that apparently was me, and I'll see if there's any witnesses, if anybody saw him, and we'll just see what happened. Because this supposedly happened on Tuesday. So I'll just go in, I'll be real smooth and I'll be like, hey, did you see anybody that looked like me on Tuesday or anybody that looked like me kind of interacting with other people? And it's like going to be this big investigation. The second he walks through the door, the first person you see says, hey, great game Tuesday. There's like no investigation aspect whatsoever. It's like I don't feel like that was supposed to be funny. I feel like that was like an oh shit moment for him of oh shit, okay, I know immediately something's going on. But just that it felt like it was going to be this sort of investigation aspect that never even got a chance to happen. And what and is it better that they completely cut to the chase, or would it have been more mysterious and interesting as an investigation kind of thing? I mean, there's still a lot of investigating in it, but he gets his answers very quickly when he gets to his locations.
Yeah, maybe that's just because of the hamstrung into the 90-minute sort of time limit for the film. Because as he himself said, more that it was a small budgeted film that really didn't give it. They didn't really give it that much marketing. So therefore, it sort of like probably underperformed. I guess the added mystery as well is what the budget is, because there's some reports saying it was somewhere in the region of like 300,000, others saying it was sort of 400,000, which at that time, 100,000 difference was pretty big for a somewhat smallish film.
Yeah, because it's based on, is it a short story or a novel?
Novel. Strange Case of
Okay.
Mr. Pelham that was written in 1940.
As a novel, I'm wondering how it reads and how much more like kind of expanded it might be. Speaking of the runtime, brother, do you want to mention how you saw this? Because I have no idea what this thing is.
I searched on the Roku for it and offered it for free on this thing called Free Movie TV. And I clicked it, and there wasn't an ad that opened up in the Roku, or there wasn't an app that opened up in the Roku. There wasn't an ad. The movie just started.
I'm assuming, was it also the Studio Canal one?
I
Like
don't know.
when it started was the first thing you saw a Studio Canal logo.
I don't remember because I literally hit play and then turned around to sit down. And when I turned around, the movie was on.
So either you took a long time to turn around and sit down, or it started quickly.
How was the like quality visual wise?
It it looked like a movie from the 70s.
Because there was one moment, because on Canopy it practically looks like a Blu-ray, but there's one shot towards the end when they're confronting each other where it's just one shot. I can't remember what exactly he's saying in the moment, but it's a shot of the second Pelham, I think, talking to him, and it looks like really old film. Like there's one shot they didn't remaster. It was kind of weird,
I
but it
mean,
did.
if it was one of the bits with the two together, maybe it's the
It was
technique of having to get them in, so you had to have the sort of the one
it,
looking grainy because that's the quality of the footage that they had, and sort of they didn't bother.
that was the weird thing. It was just one of him in the shot, but I did want to mention the techniques that they used, because there's one moment in this that I thought was pretty brilliant, and I love the way they did. Like it almost felt like they were doing it to show off, and I loved it. Where when you see an older movie and you see like like Haley Mills and The Parent Trap and stuff like that, it's like it's like this sort of split screen effect, and it's almost like by this point in time, audiences were aware of the split screen effect. So to show that that's not what they were doing, we actually have the moment where Moore walks an entire circle around himself, and
Yeah.
it's like you're just showing off, and I love it.
The other nice bit of cinematography is the when the psychiatrist is
Yeah,
talking to Pelham 1 and keep spinning him in the sort of like egg chair. But again, we've got the sort of camera pointing up, maybe as if like it's on a platform, because it looks like the psychiatrist's head is like really close to the ceiling, like abnormally. But then like with the spinning him at a different time to the rate that the dolly is spinning round the thing. Again, sort of making you wonder whether the psychiatrist is like doing some sort of hypnosis because he's in on the thing. Which by the end you don't, because then like, he's the one that maybe only knows the truth.
Yeah, because it almost when the second Pelham says stuff like, the reason you can believe it's me is because I would never wear that, and your first thought is, oh shit, it was the doctor that told him to wear that. But then the doctor seemed pretty surprised to see there were two of them. By the way, that doctor is Freddie Jones, David Lynch regular Freddie Jones, and I love the fact that even though this is pre-David Lynch, you can tell he was destined for David Lynch movies. Because he was always so extra just in general. But it's like, I love how you can see like the early makings of that here.
It was also weird seeing Anton Rogers as Pelham's friend Tony, because most of the stuff I knew of him was he was in a TV series over here called May to December, where of course he played a character called Alec Callender. But it was a nice sort of like wittily written thing, that ran for maybe 3 or 4 series. But like, I was like, wait, what's he doing in this? You know, because that's all I'd seen him in. Even though I probably have seen him in Scrooge and Day of the Jackal and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and things like that. It's just I don't remember it. I'm trying to think if this. The problem is as well, I'm trying to work out why I recognised Hildegard Neal. Oh, that's why. She's married to Brian Blessed. And I probably saw her on. Oh, did I see her on one of those episodes of Who Done It? Yeah, more crime stuff. Of course it is. Yeah, so that's probably why I recognise her. But yeah. So yeah, she spent a season at the Royal Shakespeare Company and was Lady Macbeth in a production in London in '71. So technically, yeah, this was her film debut, and this was before. Oh wow, this was the year before Antony and Cleopatra, where she was Cleopatra. But there again, she did she did a heck of a lot of TV work. Like in the '70s, there's like 20, 30 shows maybe that she did. But like on film, she did maybe a dozen films, which is sort of a bit of a shame, because it's like, I feel if this was nowadays, she'd get the Mark Rylance treatment, and like, here's this really good stage actor. I mean, to some extent, especially after seeing the documentary that Louis Theroux did with her, Judi Dench was the same. She was known for her sort of theatre work and everything, and then like her film career like went massive as soon as she got the gig of being M. And that's when she got like Mrs. Brown and Iris and all the stuff sort of from that, and Shakespeare in Love and everything.
Somehow I'd never even thought about that till just now.
I didn't think about that until it was brought up in the documentary, because I was like, yeah, it's a point. I mean, she did television stuff like over here, you know, with her husband and whatever, and things here and there. But really hadn't done any film stuff. Then again, she claims that one film director who she doesn't name basically said, "Oh, you're not attractive enough. You won't be a star." Um, or things like that. But yeah, it's sort of, the annoying thing about the cast is it did feel like I've seen a lot of them in British television shows like uh, Space 1999 or um, The Saint or things like that that would have run episodic, or maybe not The Professionals, but things like that, because I was like, I recognise that person from that show and that one from that show. Um, and then of course the crazy thing is the Lamborghini that shows up, the pivotal YLR 11G car, because uh, apparently it's rare as hell. Um, because it's right-hand drive, because it's English. Lamborghini only made 5 of them. When it was sold at auction, I don't know who from and who to. Apparently, it went for like £100,000, and then when it re-auctioned again about a couple of years back, it was, if you include commission and fees, it was roughly about 300,000. I guess it's good to see that it's in good nick. Which is also ironic because I'm trying to remember whether in the pilot episode of The Persuaders, Moore's character drives a Lambo. It's something like that, or a Ferrari. It's sports cars. I can't remember exactly what. Part of me does wonder as well whether that was more like doing the driving himself, not like the stunt driving and everything. Like, if I'm driving a Lamborghini, I'm driving a flipping Lamborghini. And then, of course, at the time, people didn't like it, and in retrospect, people have realised that no, this is, well, I wouldn't say it's an excellent film, but certainly in terms of Roger's performance, it's probably one of the strongest that he did, because it wasn't an action film. Okay, there were sort of elements of action, but it was more sort of like theatrical, I guess, drama rather
I feel
than,
like I heard something about people being put off by the title, where it made it sound the title makes it sound campier than it is.
yeah.
Where it's actually a pretty serious acting showcase, but it kind of sounds like it sounds kind of like a campy horror movie when you just hear the title.
Then again, of course, because obviously it's a Jekyll and Hyde variation, and that the original title of the book was The Strange Case of Mr. Pelham, then people would probably think it was. I mean, it is a horror film of sorts, but it's not that sort of horror film.
Yeah, you know what the man who haunted himself sounds like? It sounds like a horror comedy with Don Knotts. Is what it sounds like.
I, I always get the title confused with that Man They Could Not Hang. You know, one of Boris Karloff's best films that isn't like him being Frankenstein or the Mummy, which I still say is basically the earliest precursor that I know to Saw. Like he even writes the letter like the equivalent of like, I want to play a game. Part of me feels that like those meetings that are shown with Doppelpelham, like that's where most of the budget went. It's like, no, yeah, we're gonna get everybody to the top of the monument in London. We're gonna get everybody into London Planetarium. And we're just
That's
going
another
to
one of
hire
those
a boat on
shots.
the Serpentine.
Another one of those shots where I couldn't, where it looked like a shot out of a comedy, but it might not have been intentionally funny. When they're having the meeting on the boat, and it's like kind of a close up, and then when it zooms out, they're both on like one side of the boat, and the boat is kind of tipping up a little bit. It's like that looks like a shot out of a comedy.
Quickly looking at some of the comments in chat. Sorry we haven't gone to you earlier, but Josephine says, I watched this movie last week, thought it was super interesting. The Technicolor was gorgeous, and Moore was outstanding. Moore himself that this was one of his personal favourites, and that it's based on the short. Well, it says a short story based on the thing, but I clicked on the link, and ironically, they reprinted Strange Case of Mr. Pelham last year. I don't know whether that's been put there on purpose because and nobody's like proofread it, because then it's like, oh, are they advertising? Has that been put there as a, if you are interested in this, please read? Josephine says, I bet James would immediately snag the poor girl away from Pelham. Would Bond steal Pell's wife too? Probably.
If the opportunity rose.
I mean, you were getting elements of that just when they were introducing the photographer, and it's like, what do you think about her? And it's like, f8 lens, long exposure. And like that's so like, okay, where's the Bond script? Here's Holly Goodhead, Mary Goodnight. Bry says, let me tell you, I saw this film and pretty much forgot about it. Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Having seen it, I don't think the film is as good as I was hoping it is, but certainly Roger's performance, if it was modern days, it would probably win the Oscar if we go on the reputation of average films but with great performances.
So Brian basically feels the way I felt the first time.
Yeah.
But it does. I feel like it might. Time will tell, but I feel like it might resonate a little more now. But so I guess we'll find out.
The film's composer Michael J. Lewis also did the music for Theatre of Blood, which is a good anthology style horror thing. The Passage in the Medusa Touch. The editor Teddy Darvis also did Assassination Bureau, which was Basil Dearden's previous film before this. Tales from the Crypt, and The Railway Children. Josephine says, I wonder if this inspired Denis Villeneuve's Enemy or even Jordan Peele's Us.
I could definitely see it inspiring Enemy, come to think of it. I'm kind of surprised that didn't occur to me till just now.
Josephine bringing up how it was 3 years before Live and Let Die came out, but then the whole espionage isn't all James Bond on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Two stills from the movie, one showing Pelham reaching across for a seatbelt and the other showing a close-up of his hand fastening the seatbelt buckle. Trying to work out what that's a reference to. The initials of the company conducting the takeover are EGO. I didn't realise that till now.
Yeah, I had the captions on, and I noticed I kept wanting to read it as ego when it came up.
That's brilliant. I can't remember how much I paid for the I'm hoping that there's captions on the DVD and the Blu-ray, because there wasn't on Amazon. I had to get my audio booster to try and make sure that it was good, because I don't want to deafen myself with the speakers. So it's easier to just deafen the tab.
Oh, I will say this because, brother, you said yours didn't have captions either, right?
No.
I don't know who does the captions for Canopy and if it was just this one or if it's a common thing on there, but they were very half-assed captions. Like there were a lot of typos. There was a case where like whenever two characters would talk at once, instead of it being like one above the other, it was just in one line.
Oh.
And it's like they really rushed the captions into this.
In the rear shots where Roger drives his Rover at high speed and weaving in and out of traffic, there's no road markings. Well, to be fair, that's probably because he's behind a green screen for a lot of that stuff. It's just the usual bumping. Oh, look, I'm driving a car. Oh, the reason why there wasn't any markings is because the M4 was being extended to the Severn Bridge bordering England and Wales when the film was made. Did they stretch it? Did they film it as far as that? Because like some of those shots of like the bypass bit are like on the outskirts of London. That's interesting. It was also weird seeing a 70-mile-an-hour sign because they don't exist anymore. There's like 20, 30, 40, 50, and then when it gets to 60, it's like a black and white sort of like different one, and that means basically maximum speed allowed for the road, which on motorways is 70. Although try telling that to some of the drivers who think that they're clearly Pelham. And it's like, oh look, why is the dial going 110? Oh, even more Bond references. In Finland, the title of the movie was translated as Älä Kahdesti, which translates as "Live Twice" in English.
Oh.
Son of a bitch. It's unclear whether or not it was distributed only after Roger gained fame as Bond, but would seem like a plausible explanation for a not too subtle reference. I mean, I love the fact that it just says that the release date was the 18th of July 1970 in Birmingham, as if that's the only place it was released. Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't.
I'm never gonna be able to get it out of my head now. How the title "You Only Live Twice" would have been for this.
Yeah.
If it didn't already exist.
Once when you die and once when you look death in the face. Who then walks around you via somehow magic camera trickery. The other thing as well is Brian Forbes, who was, I guess, main producer on it. The other films that he greenlit when he was head of EMI Films when he was there from like 69 and 70. The other two were And Soon the Darkness. And the one that certainly I heard of, Hoffman, one of Sellers's I think pretty well received films, from what I remember. I know it's on like Peter Sellers' collections over here, or maybe that's just because it's from the same production company, so it's easier to put it in the box there. Josephine asks, who would win a three-way? Pelham 1, Doppelpelham, or James Bond?
Crispin Glover from Friday the 13th.
No, I was gonna say. Oh no, I was gonna say put the three of them in Scaramanga's House of Fun or whatever it was called in Man with the Golden Gun. Scaramanga would be like, "What the actual fuck? I only have one bullet for 3 people."
Wasn't that how he beat Scaramanga? Was Scaramanga thought there was a fake Bond there, but it was the real one.
Yeah, because before we get the title sequence and the theme, you see him shoot the fingers off like the model him, which you can clearly see is, ironically, the way he looks with like the sweat on him to make him look like a waxwork is sort of like how Pelham does at the end, looking so weird and pale. And so yeah, all he does is basically, I guess, shoves the waxwork in its place, stands there sort of in the place of a dummy, and that's where he gets Scaramanga.
We got this, and now, brother, of course, I can't get the image out of my head of Crispin Glover dancing on the corpses of 3 Roger Moores.
It could have been even more than 3. How many of them popped up in that rearview mirror when he punched it?
Oh my god, like 10.
Probably, yeah.
Dude, I don't know why, but when that happened, it was so corny but so awesome at the same time.
Yeah, it almost went 2001 on us at the end there.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Especially like in the words of Dr. Evil regarding Roger Moore, he got a good evil laugh.
Oh shit! There's a monolith there. Why are you reaching out to it? So Josephine.
He drove so fast. Now it's just fetus Roger Moore floating in space.
Okay.
I just imagine the fetus in the bubble, but the head is literally Roger Moore's from like 2015.
Or when he was at the Oscars, when he presented with Connery and Michael Caine, when he had the full beard.
But like in my head, like he's happy to be there, like he's smiling, looking around. He's not the 2001 baby that just sits there like and just like has no expression.
But the thing about him looking so happy there is that it wouldn't be his first time in space thanks to Moonraker.
He's probably up there smiling because he's looking down at all the good he did in the world rather than make bigger movies.
No, Hugo Drax flies by in the background, by the way. That has to happen.
He's still there floating. It's like the bit at the end of Portal 2 when Stephen Merchant's Wheatley is just talking about all these plans that he had for sort of world domination have gone out, and then like one of the other ones, like the green or the yellow one, it talked like that in weird stuff, and just like we're in space. Part of me feels Drax just comes through the shot like we're in space.
Now I'm just sitting here wondering how different gravity would have been if Sandra Bullock was just floating around and all of a sudden Drax just flies onto the windscreen of her pod.
It was Drax that caused everything. He's the one that smashed into the space station. He was the debris. Josephine's got a doppelganger face-off now. So it's as she puts it, Evil Pell. So would Evil Pell win or Evil Ash? That's obvious, Ash. To be fair, most of these are gonna be not Evil Pell because like Evil Pell does nothing.
It's like that's what we were talking about, where it's like all he really did was he kind of only made things. The closest thing he became to a villain was, I mean, taking his family, but it's not exactly a widespread threat.
Because he never crashed into him. He just stayed behind him at a manageable distance. I guess he did the don't be a fool, follow the 2-second rule. Well, to be fair, he didn't, because apparently you should double it for when it's wet conditions, and that was not a 4-second gap between the two of them at the end.
So basically, Pelham 2's major crime is that he exists.
Yeah.
Nah, he probably sped on those. He probably went too fast on those country roads, so he'd get a speeding fine. But then with that
Basically,
30,000 he got from the raise, he probably wouldn't care.
so we were talking about enemy and stuff like that, but there's kind of a nutty professor aspect to this as well, as far as like the evil one being the better version of him and the one that he wishes he was.
Well, we got some interesting things to compare here, because as it says, who would win in a fight. Yeah, I think Evil Ash would be Evil Pell. The other names that are brought up, Evil Agent Dale Cooper.
We're bringing Lynch back.
Yeah.
I think a debate you could have, if you want to go this route of not necessarily fighting, but what doppelganger in another movie improved the life of the original as much as Pelham 2 did?
Well, I think it's the next one that actually Josephine brings up in her sort of versus list. Every single double that Sam Rockwell has in Moon.
Yeah.
Because it it continues on the legacy of what needs to happen with the Thing. It only goes to shit when he realizes what's going on. That leads to the sort of downfall of everything.
I haven't seen the movie, but were there any other Michael Keatons in Multiplicity that made his life better? Or were they all downgrade?
I think, if I remember correctly, the joke is that they get progressively worse. I think there's one that's like really sensitive, I think.
That should have been all the Pelhams in the rearview mirror.
I was also trying to say, like, it's not a doppelganger scenario, but you could also say Pelham 2 is like a like kind of a Tyler Durden a little bit. Mm-hmm. Where we're talking about the whole thing of being the person that you wish you were and coming to life in a way, but obviously that's a split personality kind of thing, which once again is kind of like, it feels like this movie essentially feels like a split personality movie. It just happens to be that they both apparently have a human form.
Josephine also brings up the evil Doodle Bob in the SpongeBob Frankendoodle episode. Evil Sam Neill in Possession. Oh, and as the real big payoff, both Pelhams versus both Jeremy Irons characters in Dead Ringers.
Well, he might actually need, because at least one of the Jeremy Ironses was a doctor, which is what he needs. I was just sitting here thinking, it's funny they brought up Frankendoodle, or Doodle Bob, whatever you want to call him. They call him both. Where he's the solution to that is that they erase him, which is basically what happens in this when he fades away.
Yeah, like when for a minute it sort of like goes Inception, because everything stops, but then like more disappears, and then it just falls in the river.
Yeah, so somewhere while that finale was happening, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was just running around walls and shit.
Hey, I have a theory that might account for the plot holes in the movie. Ashley, you brought up that during the operation we just cut to and a seemingly no time has passed. What if this is all happening in his head while he's on the operating table?
I remember thinking they were gonna go the Jacob's Ladder route,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like to the point that I'm kind of surprised that's not what the end reveal is. Because it feels like it's really feels like it's setting itself up for that.
Joe's been bringing up, despite being Bond, Roger never actually said shaken, not stirred. But that was partly, him not wanting to do it because of how prolific it was for Connery, to be fair. At the same time as well, he didn't want to raise his eyebrow, despite the fact it's always been synonymous with... It's become so synonymous with Roger Moore that, like, people think that he did it more so than he did in the Bond films. I think he did it a few times. Like, I don't remember him raising an eyebrow in For Your Eyes Only when he was like, well, get dressed and I'll buy you an ice cream. He didn't raise an eyebrow then. Ironically, for his first Razzie nomination, which was Worst Supporting Actor for Spice World, he went head to head with Sean Connery for his Worst Supporting Actor nod in The Avengers.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Sadly, neither won. I'm intrigued. What did win/lose that year?
Was that the year Jar Jar Binks won? I think Jar Jar Binks won that year. If it was 99,
Worst Supporting Actor.
or is that 98?
Might be 98. So.
Because I was thinking Spice World was 99, but now I'm thinking that The Avengers was 98, so it's probably 98.
Joe Pesci also was nominated for Lethal Weapon 4. And then Sylvester Stallone and winner Joe Esterhazy for the Alan Smithy film.
I never even saw that, actually.
The film that was so bad, the director even Alan Smithied himself, which just makes it beautifully ironic. Roger made no secret of the fact that he loved the old basic British snack of baked beans on toast. Hell yeah! A simple man. He don't want to go to the Savoy. If he goes to the Savoy, he's like, a tin of baked beans and a slice of Warburtons. Damn it! And then doppelganger him is like, there's no need to raise your voice, sir. Wow, that's something. Two things I didn't realise now from Josephine. One, Dominic West was in Spice World. Clearly before, he was majorly famous.
I say that's what, 4 years before The Wire?
Somewhere in that region.
I think my favorite fact of who's in Spice World is Richard E. Grant and the fact that he's a major role.
Yeah.
And then Moore's stepdaughter's boyfriend, who is Janice Fries, invented Skype.
The fuck?
And then sold it to Microsoft for money. And it went
Roger
downhill
Moore is
from
such
there.
a weird rabbit hole.
It went downhill from there, which is why this is being done on Discord. And then we'll find out that Discord gets bought by Google, and we're all done for. I guess us talking about that Christmas film that Roger was in. Bry says, every Hallmark and Lifetime Christmas movie. Couple loves each other. Something bad happens. They don't love each other. An event happens. They love each other again. Merry Christmas.
I was gonna say that's every romantic comedy ever, but then you say Merry Christmas, it's like, oh yeah, there's Hallmark.
Yeah.
You forget in the beginning, one of them has to be from a small town and one of them has to be from the city. It doesn't matter which one's which.
People are
Because
already
they alternate.
people are already complaining over here because one of the, I say main channels because obviously they were the old like terrestrial channels before we went digital. Channel 5 every afternoon is showing 2, maybe 3 Christmas films. And people are going, it's the middle of November? Why do you...
Yeah,
Obviously, it's because they've got them all off the Hallmark and the Lifetime channel.
Actually, did you know that this year there's going to be a Trish Stratus is going to be in a Christmas movie, like one of those?
I mean, I'm not surprised. You know, after seeing what happened with that Paige and Miz one from like Santa's Little Helper or whatever it was a few years back. Dear Lord. That's why if we do manage to get a Christmas film in somehow for like going up to the holiday season, if you pick mine at the right time, it might be. I'm surprised it hasn't come up on the channel because I think it technically would fall within when the channel started. I think, but I don't. I haven't seen it be reviewed. I'll have to run it by AJ when we go off air to clarify whether I can submit it or it has been discussed. Josephine asks, speaking of Dominic West, can you come up with a doppelganger film starring him, Don Cheadle, and Jessica Chastain? I mean, I don't want to Gone Girl it, but I feel Chastain would be the better doppelganger.
I was just thinking that.
I was thinking that too.
And she's
because when Dominic West tried to do it in Johnny English Reborn, didn't work.
I was gonna say I love all three of them, but Chastain has the most range, I think, by far.
Well, I'm going to throw one out there. Just remake this movie and replace Roger Moore with Don Cheadle.
The Don Cheadle doppelganger has to be Terrence Howard.
Wow.
Bring Terrence Howard's crazy ass in here.
And Bry says, do the Bob Arrays first, Pelham, and then get attached to paper. So yeah, I think that's everything. Semi-schedule change, which we were planning to announce at the start of the thing. We haven't until now because I blame Roger Moore. So Pee-wee's Big Adventure has been adjusted. I have just found out, even though I was supposed to find out somewhere within the last 2 weeks. So it's a reveal to me as well, and it means that I've got to get another picture to get into the thumbnail for 2 weeks' time. Chris, what are we gonna be? What is your selection now for Thanksgiving weekend?
We're going to do my favorite thing and make AJ uncomfortable with where the conversation can go. But in 2 weeks, we will be reviewing They Live.
Oh.
The John Carpenter, Roddy Piper movie. And Keith David. Let's not forget Keith David.
Yeah, get the Keith David.
So I guess my question now is Pee-wee just going to be your next one after They Live, or is Pee-wee like indefinitely shelved?
For anybody that already watched Pee Wee, I apologize. Something has come up that I want to talk about more.
I guess
Pee Wee will get his time. It just may not be for a little bit.
Pee Wee will show up, and by the time we do that,
Oh, Pee Wee might be fun to talk about in the spring. So let's push Pee Wee to spring.
by the time we do that, the curse will have happened and Paul Rubens will have died.
Oh god.
No, because we haven't talked about it yet.
I was really so we're gonna do two movies in a row now where the main actor has already died. So
Um, Keith David is not safe.
yeah. Keith David's also been very busy lately. I can never tell if that's good or bad because Christopher Plummer was busy when we lost him.
I just imagine like when it happened to Plummer, he's just like, "Oh damn, I can't finish those 3 movies."
Oh god.
And yeah, so keep in mind as well the poll that we'll be doing in 2 weeks, whether that is Cyber Monday or Thanksgiving Sunday or whatever. We'll get the schedule by then. I know I'm going to be submitting technically 2 because mine will be time restricted. So maybe it'll give you more impetus if you are interested in the Christmas one that I'm going for. Then again, I'm trying to know what the availability of that is on streaming services. So again, I have to sort of discuss stuff. Bry says 4 horror movies in a row. I guess.
AJ, my next selection, I apologize. I'm between 2. It might be seasonal and it might be somebody that you really are not going to want to talk about.
Are both of those things one movie?
No, there's 2 different
Okay.
movies at play.
Okay, so it's not just Friends then.
Oh, wait. Yeah, that would have been option 2. I misunderstood your question. Well, now I'm going option 1 just because I want to keep the surprise.
Yes,
There you go.
yes, yes. I eliminated Ryan Reynolds from the conversation.
There it is.
So you think?
Oh, fuck.
Wait, how many Christmas films has Ryan
AJ,
Reynolds
you'll know what this one is. Option 1 and the one I'm probably going to go with is the one that you thought would be the very first movie I would bring up. It's finally time to talk about it.
Oh fuck! I forget what that is now. I remember having this conversation.
So yeah, keep an eye on Popcast Network Twitter or my Twitter at Ashes My Name UK. I'll let you know when stuff is going down in sort of time wise and schedule wise. Keep it here on the network as well. Voice of Liberty, Sip and Snack, Snack Stash, AJ's movie reviews, versus all that good stuff here on the page. Just go to the video section rather than the live section, where all these are housed. All these, movie club bits, the award stuff, and basically any time that we live stream, it'll all be on the live section. Who knew?
Also, it's topical to do Carpenter with They Live because Carpenter is also coming to Versus for one of those October ones I need to catch up on. So I was happy when you picked They Live because I've been on a Carpenter kick lately anyway, and it was like I need to get to They Live at some point, and then I was already thinking that when you said that's what your new choice was.
And the good thing is with They Live, there is a video game tie-in directly to it, because that video game would just legitimately, yeah, we stole this shit.
Oh, before I forget, anybody that does not have They Live, it's on Tubi.
Yeah, but I did mention it's free on Tubi.
Mhm.
Tubi is so useful. It's insane how much. I mean, the ads suck, obviously, but they are so stocked. It's amazing.
I'm trying to see if I think I own it on Amazon, so I can just watch it on there. Hang on, let's just double check.
Do you know how old my They Live DVD is?
Oh God.
Probably not as old as my Ocean's 11 DVD.
No, but
There are
I
very few things older than that.
I got They Live from Circuit City.
Oh, oh,
Oh,
man.
so I don't own the original They Live, whatever that is, but I do have the remaster that like came out earlier this year or last year, I think, to coincide with the. Well, it can't have been an anniversary because I know it was somewhat recent. The remaster. It was when they 4K'd it, which I think was in the last year, or something like that. So yeah, all that content is here on the channel. As previously mentioned, I can be found on Twitter at AshMyNameUK. Chris is over on Instagram. Maybe, I guess you're gonna be like, for the rest of the year, it's gonna be sort of like year in review, like highlights from, like throwback highlights, as well as teasing what's to come in 2023.
There'll be some teasing of what's coming to 2023, and also, I have something else to pimp out today.
Oh,
Yes. So a couple years ago, Susan and I started a wrestling podcast. We got 6 episodes in, and then COVID happened, and that was the end of that because we stopped watching wrestling during COVID. We are bringing that back, and we'll be covering WWE, NXT, AEW, Ring of Honor, and any major pay-per-view events, with the exception of WWE Saudi Arabia shows. I'll not be covering those. There will also be
Saudi!
there
I
will
feel
also be
I have to
discussion
do
on
that.
the.
I have to do that every time there's a Saudi thing because it feels like that's what Saudi deserves.
Yes.
It's like we try and be silent. We don't want it's an event happening in a country. You know.
Yes. So we'll have that. We'll also have toy discussion on there where we'll talk about toy hunts, items that we're looking for, events that we're going to go to do toy hunting. As of right now, the schedule will be a new episode every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And you'll be able to find it on all of your major podcast carriers, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, etc.
And the good old fashioned RSS.
Yeah.
We can probably get Owen to tweet about that as well, probably, if I remember to tell him.
Interesting final question from Josephine. What should I watch tonight? Parallax View, Avalon, or Take This Waltz?
That's definitely one.
Uh
Let's say either
Oh
Parallax.
no, we lost AJ.
What's that?
We
you
lost you for
spluttered
a
for a
second.
few seconds. So you said
I'm
that
glad you're answering
you
this
said
question
you
because
said
you know
that's
what my answer would have been.
Crispin Glover on Friday the 13th.
Exactly.
You said
I
that's
would
definitely,
say
and then it went like weird.
if
AJ,
you
I'm sorry. You froze up on my phone for a second. So when you were laughing at what I said, you did it all in fast motion and it looked really weird.
if you're in the mood for like a thriller, definitely go the Parallax View. But if you want something that's like, you know, I'm surprised. I feel like we talked about Take This Waltz. Has Josie not seen Take This Waltz?
I'm not
Maybe
sure.
not. Yeah, Take This Waltz is excellent also, and Williams is, even if you start to hate her character, she's amazing, and Sarah Silverman is amazing in it also. It's like it's pretty much on par with her performance in I Smile Back. So, and Seth Rogen is the performances across the board are, yeah. Maybe you should do Take This Waltz if you haven't yet, but I extremely recommend the Parallax View also, which also has a versus I did last year on here. Just throwing that out there also.
I'm just realizing I forgot to drop the name of my podcast. Who's
Yeah.
gonna know to look for it if they don't have a name? The name of the podcast is Figures and Flippy Shit.
Fair. Makes sense. Well, we know that Braun Strowman won't be listening to that. Oh, Josephine says, I haven't seen Take This Waltz yet.
Oh, wow. That's highly recommended also.
So you're saying you're going Stiller and Starsky and Hutch and just do it. Do it. Take This Waltz. Do it.
AJ cannot be found on social media, and just like Keith Richards, cannot be killed with conventional weapons. Thanks everybody for their. Josephine says thanks for the advice, AJ, and good luck, Chris. Is that the sequel to Good Luck, Chuck? I mean, it will probably be better than it, no matter what. So thanks everybody for watching, listening, all that good stuff. Until tomorrow, boys and girls. Hot damn!